county, and I wish the whole state of Illinois looked as good as and had as much energy as I've seen and known here in Will County for some time. Obviously, the intermodals are key to all of them. And as the president of the State Chamber of Commerce, one of the messages that is most important to me, and I can reiterate it over and over and over again, and that is infrastructure is the cornerstone of the Illinois economy. We must invest in our roads, in our bridges, in our airports, in our railways, in our waterways, because that is what has made Illinois a great state, is our location in the country. 2/3 of all of the cargo moving through the state of Illinois, through this country, is moving through Illinois. The only place where all the railroads come together, all the Class 1 railroads come together. More interstate highways crossing and feeding Illinois than any other state. And the ability to get anywhere in the world on a single flight. I mean, those are the kinds of advantages that we have. We need to play upon them and continue to invest in them. So when I talk to people about not willing or not interested in financing our infrastructure, I say to them two things. Number one, you know, investing in infrastructure is like planting trees. We don't do it for ourselves. We do it for what someone else is going to see later. And we do it today because we want the economy in Illinois to always be stronger for that next job growth, that next generation. We must do this. Secondly, private sector can't do all this stuff by ourselves. Private sector and government has to work together to invest in infrastructure. We can't build our own left turn lane, but we need it. We can't put in an extension of a metro line, but we need it. We can't rebuild a runway, but we need it. That's a partnership between business and government. So it's not an anti-government mode that we're faced with. It's a partnership to succeed in our state, in our community, and for our individual businesses. Now, the campaign that we started a year ago and that we're still pushing, and this is pretty critical for me, and I'm just going to lay this out on you. I got a little bit of gray hair now. I've spent my whole life in this state. I love this state. The last decade was really a disaster for us. And when Pat Quinn was elected governor, I said during a sidebar conversation, and I haven't repeated this very often, but I'm going to share it with you today. I said, Governor, I'm tired of being down on Illinois. I'm tired of the negative situation we've had in our state for the last 10 years. You are our governor, and I want you to be successful. Because Illinois needs to be successful. I supported your opponent. I actually helped put a lot of money behind your opponent, but you won. And we need to be successful for our state. So let me share with you, Governor, something that's very important. My members, the people I represent, my constituency, are employers, and they're managers, and they're business owners, and they're investors. And you know what? They know management is hard. Management is not easy, and they have to do it every day. They have to deal with the environment that's changing. If you will make the hard management decisions that this state, that we know needs to be made in our state, we will support you. Which leads me to what I think right now today is the most important issue facing our state, and that's getting our fiscal house in order. Financial integrity. It's frankly, it's the biggest issue in Washington, and it's the biggest issue in Illinois. I don't know about Will County, Larry. We're not but it's what we have to do. So, Senator, you're going down to Springfield now in a new role, and I will share with you, when Governor Quinn gave his budget message just a few short weeks ago, it was the most honest message I'd ever heard him. He basically said, you know, it's over. We've got to deal with tough issues. And there are two particularly tough issues that we have to deal with. And I'm hoping when you go home in 6 weeks that we will have seriously dealt with changing the trajectory on our public employee union and public employee pension programs in our state. We cannot sustain the trajectory we are on. Things have to give. And like a lot of things in government, it has to percolate for a long time. Well, I think this pension issue has been percolating now for 4 or 5 years, and And I genuinely believe that the elected officials, from the governor on down, and many public employees know that this has to change. Public employees aren't going to like it. No one likes to give anything back. But truthfully, the private sector went through this 20, 30 years ago. And the public employees have been protected for so long that they believe that their pensions will be there. And I do not believe that anymore. If we don't have change, I do not believe those pensions are going to be there. And as the head of the teachers' retirement system said just about 2 weeks ago, he laid it out. It's going to run out of money. So it has to change. How far can we make it go? I don't know. I've been very positive about some of the things that have been happening in Springfield over the last couple of years, because I really do believe we've got to turn the corner. The problem is that, and I've said this about my Democratic friends that I talk to, they've making the right decisions, but incremental decisions. We need some bolder action and some bolder decisions, because the actions that we're taking aren't moving the needle enough. And I'm going to give you one example. The Illinois Chamber started talking about workers' compensation reform about 3 years ago. We put together a plan. We actually began talking about it consciously, trying to move it out of the closet onto center stage. And the good news is that after the 2010 election, Senate President John Cullerton grabbed that issue and put it in center stage and said, we're going to deal with this issue. And through the 2011 legislative session, workers' compensation was at the top of the list, and a workers' compensation reform bill passed. And we can all be happy that we made progress. But when you push the pencil, when the dust settles, 2 years from now, we're still going to have the fourth highest workers' comp cost in the country. And every governmental body, state of Illinois, is still going to be paying more than they need to pay. As one of my members said to me, no private sector company would run workers' compensation for their own employees the way the state of Illinois does for their employees. And that we needed, and this was the message we were trying to get across to our government partners, is we need government officials to act like the business managers that they really are. The state of Illinois is a $50 billion corporation with 55,000 employees, and they've got more workers' comp claims than anybody else. In the private sector, there would be a workers' comp safety meeting every morning when you reported to work. Every shift, there would be a safety meeting about what are we going to do. And that's the kind of attitudinal change. So we made progress. I'm glad we made progress. But incremental change isn't going to get us where we need to go. We have the absolute worst funded public employee pension system in the country. Over $80 billion of debt, unfunded liabilities. Incremental change isn't going to get us where we need to go. The other element that comes into play, and the governor also grabbed it, and that's Medicaid reforms or Medicaid cost containment. Let's be more honest about it. Cost containment. Again, the trajectory is such that we cannot sustain where we are. We've overpromised and we've overcommitted. We took a program that used to have fewer than 1 million people in it. Today we have a program with more than 2 million people in it. And you think that there's no added cost? You think that there's something that's manageable about that? Fundamental things have to change. So the biggest issue facing the state of Illinois, and this is hard for elected officials because that's not why they run for office. They don't run for office to say no to people. You run for office to say yes to people, to help people. Our problem is that we no longer have the money in the treasury and we're no longer willing to just wish it. We're beginning to face reality in our state. We are a great state. We want to get back to the position where we are a leader and no longer afraid to tell people when we're traveling that we're from Illinois. That's going to have to change. And the way we change it is hard decisions. Over time, there's no quick fix on this. There's no silver bullet on this. It's going to take, even if we make these public employee pension changes, it's going to be 40 or 50 years before we get back to where we need to be. But first of all, kind of like alcoholism, right? We recognize we got a problem. We We are admitting that we've got a problem, now we do something about it. And I think the private sector, my constituents, people like you in this room, you understand it, you know it. You have to be willing to say to our elected officials, we want you to deal with it. We trust you to deal with it. In fact, we expect you to deal with it because we cannot sustain where we are. We want a different future. So those are the issues. Number one, fiscal integrity. Number two, reduce the cost of doing business. Every way we can, we need to reduce the cost of doing business in Illinois, whether it's taxes or workers' compensation or fees or our ability to get zoning actions at the local level, throughout government. What can we do to reduce the cost of doing business so that employers will feel good about investing and growing jobs in Illinois? Number three, and this is the one that I don't spend a lot of time on, but it resonates, and I'm pleased to be able to report to you about this, workforce development and workforce commitment. How I began to see that our economy was coming back in our state was about 8 months ago. As I started traveling around the state, people started talking about the need for quality workers. That's the first sign that they're wanting to hire. So I'm in Peoria about 6 weeks ago, and the front page of the Peoria Journal-Star, above the fold, center story, local company needs 100 workers. That story has since picked up. I've seen that same story in national publications and in the Chicago papers. The fact of the matter is, there are jobs going begging. Literally, hundreds of thousands of jobs going begging because we don't have the right match or the right skills. And we need to change that. So one of the things I talk to local community groups about is the employers and the educators and the employers and the unions who do a lot of education for skill crafts have got to start working together to make sure we got the right workforce to meet the needs of the community. And you can't wait for the economy just to recover and throw a switch and all of a sudden you've got thousands of employees. So that is another key element. The fourth element I talk about is infrastructure investment, and I started out my talk on that subject. So I believe that we have turned the corner. I genuinely believe the elected officials in the state of Illinois, for the most part, they get it now. They know that the times have changed. Our expectations of them are greater, and we know they're going to have to make hard decisions, and we need, you and I as voters, we need to support them. We need to help them do the hard things that need to be done for the country, for our state, and for our community. Again, I thank you very much for inviting me to be here. I'd be happy to answer a few questions if you wish. The Illinois Chamber, many people in the room are probably not members of the Illinois Chamber. Everybody's a member of the local chamber, not necessarily a member of the state chamber. But I want you to understand what we do is we work on the big public policy issues that most individual businesses cannot do by themselves. And since 98% of all the businesses in the state of Illinois have fewer than 100 employees, you know darn good well they don't have full-time lobbyists. They don't have a full-time communications person or a media relations person or a full-time, or the ability to have a lot of consultants. That's what we do at the Illinois Chamber, is we do our best to represent the interests of the employers in this state so that they will be successful and prosperous employers in the state of Illinois. We engage in that dialogue with the elected officials in a way with the objective of moving our state forward. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to visit. Thank you very much. Thank you, Larry, for being here. We've got time for a couple of questions if you want to offer them up. Yes, Congressman.
I recently met with Mr. Daniels and asked him about how many companies had left Illinois recently. He's to go to Indiana. He said 26, and more are coming. And we see Scott Walker with his signs. We see Christie from New Jersey running ads in Illinois for businesses. How can we, and then the legislature, governor giving out benefits of the big companies like Sears and Boeing stay here. Now all these other companies, well, they should get the same rate or tax rate or whatever that is that you can. How can we make sure? I mean, Illinois is a great state, and it's the lifestyle, and we want to stay here, but it's making it very difficult the taxes.
Notice she asked me a state question instead of a federal question. Let me answer it this way. I know that there's been some movement. I think that Illinois is highly competitive in a lot of ways. And we're always going to have this push and pull against states. What's happened to us, and it is so troubling, and again, is moving the needle over time, is that after a decade of disastrous public relations, 2 governors being sent to prison, and the perception that Illinois is a corrupt state, that we're a banana republic in the heart of the country. You have people who want to avoid us, and changing our image is really fundamental. And the way you change your image is you get to be good at something. I like to say to people, what are we really going to be good at? I don't care what it is, but let's pick some things that we're going to be really good at and deliver on it. We're going to have the best infrastructure and transportation networks in the country. Or we're going to graduate 90% of the kids out of school. Pick some targets and deliver on those targets. Now, we've got some challenges. When we raised taxes in the state of Illinois a year ago in January, I testified against that bill in the Illinois Senate. And I looked John Cullerton right in the eye and I said, Senator, if you're going to raise these taxes, I can't stop it. But do not raise the Illinois corporate income tax any higher than the corporate income tax rate in Indiana. That was my best advice. Well, of course they did, and then within a matter of months we began to back off. So we've got some cost of doing business issues we've got to deal with. The tax structure is one. Another one is workers' compensation. Those are issues that we can't deal with. But we have to have elected officials who are willing to step up and say, tax climate is important to us. And we have policies that we want to play on too. But we're not going to get over this tarnish in the short term. And the best way to get over that is to be successful in things. Let me ask you another question. When's the last time you had anybody say to you, oh, we're one of the leading industrial states? That phrase kind of dropped out of the conversation, didn't it? Well, we are. And we're damn proud of it. I'm happy that we're an industrial state. I'm happy that we got refineries and we've got power plants. I'm happy that we have manufacturing. We are a leading manufacturing state in this nation, and we're successful at it. We shouldn't be afraid of it. We should be proud of it, and we should continue to try to grow it. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of recognizing our strengths and playing to our strengths. But we do have a PR. I really genuinely believe it's a public relations problem, and it's going to linger with us for a long time until we give people another reason to speak about us instead of the fact, and I digress here, but I'm going to tell you that story. When Governor Blagojevich went to prison, my immediate reaction was, I'm glad that's finally behind us. I knew we were going to have headlines. I knew it was going to be a national story behind us. That lasted about 5 days. The next week, Beavers was indicted. And the next week, Representative Smith was indicted. Somehow we got to get over this. We can't keep having this happen to us. Because I believe that genuinely, most people who run for public office are good people who want to do good work. But we have to police ourselves with that. Now, she asked the question, and I got the microphone, so I'm going to deal with it slightly differently. Speeches I've been giving recently, particularly about infrastructure. I am so frustrated with what's happening in Washington. I genuinely believe the country is without leadership, and the Congress is treading water against a really strong current. And we're doing as well as we are in this nation without federal leadership in a lot of ways. And this transportation bill is a classic example of the inability to do something that's so fundamentally important to the nation. And as you know, Congress just extended another 90 days. the Senate bill, which was a 2-year bill, and I spoke to members of our delegation, and I said, you know, in congressional terms, 2 years is an extension. Because by the time you get through the election, and then you get sworn in a new Congress, you're immediately going to have to start on a new transportation bill. Treat it that way. Treat it as a decent extension. It didn't happen. Nothing's going to happen now until we get through this election. I'm surprised at anything. And to the House's benefit, the Senate is worse than the House. The Senate hasn't passed an appropriation bill in 3 years. The House is pushing legislation to the Senate, and the Senate is in such gridlock, they can't do a thing. They are literally locked down. And as a result of that, you and I, and our nation is suffering. And you know, there's an old story. I love my congressman. It's always somebody else is wrong. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to reach out. I like our delegation. I think the Illinois delegation works pretty well together. I have good access to them. I engage in conversation with them. I feel good. I haven't got a clue what's going on in the rest of the country. And that scares me to death, because they're clearly not the same kind of folks we're sending to Washington. So something's going to have to give. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see much of that until after the November election. Now, let me give you another one. Again, most of you in this room are business people. I'm going to put it right between the eyes on you. If you're not giving political checks to candidates for public office, you're failing the country. The business voice needs to be heard. The employers must step up and make those contributions. I said a moment ago, 98% of all the employers in our state have fewer than 100 employees. I'm going to go one step further. I'm willing to bet that every school teacher in the state of Illinois gives more money to political action through their paychecks than most small business people do in the course of the year. Because for some reason, small business people, employers don't get the connection, don't connect the dots between making a political contribution and being engaged in an election and outcomes. Well, 130,000 teachers in the state make the connection. They give, and their organization's able to write 6-figure checks to candidates and political action. And none of the business organizations, none of us, are able to compete with what the public employee unions are able to do in terms of financing campaigns. The only way that turns around is for good people like you, who are community leaders and business owners and business managers, to engage in this process. And the best way we turn our state around is for good people to step up and do good things. So, one more question? In the back.
It was music to my ears when I heard you say that the companies and the chambers are doing something to educate, or at least have talked about doing something to educate the unemployed individuals for when that need for qualified employees are being sought out. I love this. I truly believe that education is where it needs to be to get everyone up to par to where that bar has been raised. And I would love to hear more at the front of everything else that's going on with Illinois and Joliet and all our surrounding areas on educating all our unemployed individuals so that they are ready when things are rolling and going fast.
We sent this little card to every legislator, every candidate for public office. You didn't get one because you weren't on that mailing list. 48-day job growth, 1999 to 2009. Unemployment rate in December, 9.8%. 9.8%. That's 647,000 people. So when you see those percentage numbers, think about in terms of real people. 12% of our population is below the poverty level. High school graduation is 78.8%. We are 18th among the states. When I say a while ago about setting a bar and going and getting it, no way should Illinois be 18th. We're the 5th largest state, we're the 5th most populous state. We should target ourselves clearly to be in the top 10, if not 5th. And the National Assessment of Education Progress ranks Illinois 30th. Now, there's another interesting observation as I travel the state. What I'm now hearing from employers, and particularly people who are doing temporary employment, we have extended the unemployment insurance who are denying the right to go to work because they're doing well enough with unemployment insurance benefits. And when the last UI extension came about, I got more of that comment back than ever before from small business people saying, extending unemployment benefits is hurting our ability to employ people, and people are taking advantage of it. And that's a sad commentary to make. You think that people want to work, but they're actually, there are actually people who do the quick math in their head, and I get paid X for doing nothing, and I get X plus Y for working. I don't think I need that job that day. That's a bad commentary, and we need to come to grips with that, and we need to get more people to work. One of the comments I like to share, as I said, every able-bodied citizen in the state of Illinois needs to be a productive, contributing citizen in our community and in our population, and we as citizens should be doing everything we can to move people from the unemployment ranks, or the not even looking for work ranks, to being productive citizens. And that just doesn't happen. So, chambers of commerce have got to be involved. Employers have got to become more involved in that dialogue. And quite frankly, our unions provide a lot of training that schools no longer do. And we've got to find a way to help get people into the workforce. Many of our state's economic problems, I'm talking about state budget fiscal problems, would be resolved if we had another 600,000 people working in the state of Illinois. We have lost workers out of our state. When people leave our state because there's greener pastures in other locales, and that's exactly what happened over the last decade, we lose twice. We lose a productive contributor to our society, and at the same time it means fewer people are working and paying taxes to help maintain the base of our state government. So there are challenges for us. I've got the high sign from Russ. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to stick around and visit with anybody individually. I've got a handful of these cards. If anybody wants to pick one up, it's the 5-point job plan plus some what I call the horrible factoids about our state. And then there's also some business jobs agenda pamphlets over there at the door if you want to pick one up on the way out.
Doug, thank you so much for opening our eyes again and wider to some of the challenges that do face our state. Our chamber is very active on many of these issues, including the transportation bill at the federal level, along with tax concerns at the state level, transportation concerns, and so forth, through our Governmental Affairs Committee. So that is a large part of our agenda here at the Joliet Chamber. And Doug, you were right when you talked about the importance of public-private partnerships. And that is the reason that Will County heads the state at this time of being one of the premier counties that you hold up, is because of the public-private partnership, working with the state, with our representatives, our senator, working with our county executive, and with our mayor, city manager, and the council, city council here in Joliet. We have a marvelous partnership that works and has been working for a number of years, and we appreciate that very, very much. Then I'd like to take just a moment. You thought I was neglecting our special guest, but I'm not, to acknowledge and welcome Congresswoman Biggert. Thank you so much for joining us in your new district. And Senator McGuire, thank you in your new position, your first luncheon chamber event, I believe. Yes, 5 weeks in. So we're delighted to have you here, along with our regulars who are here, county executive, our regional school superintendent, and our city manager also are here. If I missed anyone, I apologize. Thank you again for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day. Doug will be around for a few moments if you have something you would like to speak